What is up, everyone? Welcome to another weekly news video. You can see today's topics down in the chapters below, but I thought we could just jump straight into it today. Now, as you would have seen, if you are a regular of the channel, we've spoken about hobby censorship, quite some time over the last month, specifically with some of the things that popped off on the blowout forums following, Mind Cycle Cards video on Jeff Wilson. And if you weren't aware, basically, this video was created talking through all the purchases that Jeff Wilson made, sports card investor, and how maybe he wasn't as good of as an investor as he likes to make out. Now, this video is very fair and balanced. It highlights, some, purchase prices, unrealized losses based on valuations today, all this sort of stuff. Off the back of that, a post was made on the blowout forums, and what started to happen was that post started to get deleted, and it started to get deleted for very weird reasons, right? The excuses from the administrators, on the blowout forums seemed very, very odd. And then these raised lots of questions around censorship on their boards and how it's been happening for many, many months, many years, including, topics around the likes of Ken Golden, etc. The key question came, are these guys protecting themselves, i.e. self-interest, because they're sponsored by these individuals? Now, off the back of this, like I said, it raised lots of questions, and people like, Wax Museum Podcast put out some really good, videos on this topic, talking about how, hobby boards and forums are, a fundamental piece to, our hobby, right? If you want to learn about things, you want to learn something historically, and you want to go back and research, the fact that you have this information within these boards is very important. And all of a sudden, for people to go ahead and change the narrative, delete things, rewrite history, essentially, paints a very, dangerous precedent, right? Because it then misconstrues, actual information, right? People are trying to change things to benefit themselves. So this started to raise, obviously, lots of questions. Now, essentially, off the back of that, Mind Cycle Cards, who I kicked off this talking point with, the one who made the video about Jeff Wilson, decided to go ahead and make his own forums, and that's what you're seeing on screen right now. This is called The Hobby Boards. It's thehobbyboards.com, and it's essentially his way of putting something together for the community to make it, essentially fun and sort of self-interest free, basically censorship free is what I'm trying to get to here. I'm not affiliated with this in any way, shape, or form. I am all for this kind of thing happening within our hobby. We need more places to discuss and interact with each other and learn. That's where a lot of the fun is with collecting cards, right? This is essentially where most of us started to make friends within the hobby, like 10, 15, 20 years ago, before, all the Instagram pages and the Facebook groups and all this sort of stuff. There wasn't that many card shows. Like, yeah, they were popping off every now and then, but if you're in your, small town, or you're in your state and there's not many events throughout the year, this is where you got most of your, itch scratched, is, where I'm trying to get at. Again, I'm not affiliated with this in any way, shape, or form. I think I already said that. So please check it out if you are interested in interacting with this sort of stuff. It is still very new. I think it's only launched in the last, 1 to 3 weeks, maybe. But I thought, it's a pretty cool thing, a pretty cool initiative, because some of the things we're seeing on Blowout and some of these other forums regarding censorship, it concerns me quite a lot, because we can't have the narrative being changed. We can't have people's voices be diminished in order to protect, certain individuals or sponsors. Now, there's no proof to say that's what's happening in those instances with Blowout forums, but again, we've talked about it enough. It looks very concerning. You make up your own mind is basically what you should be doing on this certain matter. Now, the next thing I want to talk to is something we've touched on a couple of times already, and that is the robbery out at Panini. Basically, Panini's head office being broken into and having things stolen. The key takeaway I want you to do on this before I go into anything else is to, go ahead and change your Panini password. If you're a customer of Panini, change your freaking password. If you're sending redemptions to Panini, change your freaking password. Because the information that was stolen could be quite critical from a customer data perspective. If you weren't aware, basically their head office was broken into, but it wasn't just broken into randomly. It was a very targeted break-in. They knew what they were looking for. They took very precise and specific things. They demolished walls in order to get access to what it is they wanted to try and get, which was, hard drives and servers and things like that. It was very, very targeted. So given the targeted nature of what these people took, you need to go ahead and be basically changing your passwords to best protect yourself, even if it's non-customer data that has been taken or could be accessed. Just be best to protect yourself, right, is essentially the point I'm trying to get at. This is a pretty concerning one. There's lots of tinfoil hats around inside jobs and all that sort of stuff. Again, given how targeted it was, that stuff is not entirely far-fetched, in my opinion. This is being recorded Thursday morning Australian time. It'll be released, Sunday morning Australian time. So if more information has come to light between now and then, please don't hate on me down in the comments. I think it's just very, very concerning. There's definitely more to come on this, right? These guys and girls, if they were guys and girls, basically went there, took very specific things. They knew what they were looking for. It wasn't just a smash and grab. It was very calculated. that tells me there's more to come with regards to this. So sort of watch this space. Let me know if you know any more information yourself, but it is, pretty damn concerning in my opinion. Now, the last thing I want to talk to is actually a pretty cool video that Neo Cards and Comics put together, dropped earlier today, and it's talking about how Beckett slabs appear to be, losing value relatively quickly. Now, this is in comparison of BGS 10s to PSA 10s and then BGS 9.5s compared to, PSA 9s. The gap that they used to have over, PSA equivalents, i.e. the premium, I should say, is getting, smaller and smaller. And it looks like this is mainly due to, BGS's complete lack of professionalism over the last 2 to 3 years, but also, their complete, inactivity as well. They basically are not present. They're not communicating. They're not doing anything. And it's not overly surprising considering we've seen things like their backtracking on slab changes and grading scale changes and things like that. It's a very interesting video from Neo, so please check it out. The thing I do want to quickly talk to is, BGS used to be considered the best, right? Now, irrespective of their, fake cards that they can seem to continue to keep grading, especially in the soccer space, and some of these other issues with regard to their guarantees and things like that, you might be able to get some of these slabs now for relatively cheap. They were always considered the best, and it's only changed over the last 2 to 3 years that people all of a sudden say, PSA is the best, we're going to pay so much more for PSA slabs, which I've always found, very odd. Like, yes, some graders might be better at some things than others, but the gap between them, you're a little naive if you think it's huge. Like, really, is there that much difference between a PSA 10 and a BGS 10 from a grading perspective? I think most of the time they're going to be pretty consistent between each other. So the fact you're going to pay a premium for something seems very, very odd for me. And if you're somebody that's looking at, picking up a black label PSA BGS 10, now might be your time, because it looks like, the hobby is turning off pretty quickly. And there might even be a play there where you can sort of buy the BGS equivalent and then have it graded with PSA and get that PSA 10 and then still get that pretty big, resale value. I just think it's a pretty interesting video, so please do check it out. I've hated on BGS a lot, primarily with these fake soccer cards and some of these other fakes they've graded and their lack of guarantee and all their other errors. But I'm never going to begrudge someone from buying a card, for their PC. If you like BGS slabs, I want to tell you right now, like, these prices are coming down, so maybe this is your chance to get the thing that you've always wanted, right? And maybe the prices will come down further and you might end up overpaying, but it is what it is. It wasn't that long ago that the hobby preferred BGS. So maybe there's also a play here where you can buy some of these BGS slabs, and for the time being, the pricing keeps coming down, but then, maybe Fanatics acquires BGS and the prices come back, or the hobby sort of realizes, well, hang on a minute, PSA has graded so much crap over the last couple of years, they're so inconsistent, maybe BGS was the best, and then, the prices flip once again to what they were 5 years ago. There's very much a real possibility of that. I've always found the whole, investing in cards thing very odd. I can't, get my head around cards being worth, significant value. Like, it's just odd for me. I just think they're pieces of cardboard, and that's not to diminish, the fun of collecting cards or, the value of them or anything like that. I just have a hard time grasping that concept, right? Because they're just pieces of cardboard to me. But the fact that you might be able to make a pretty good play here might be something you can chase. Or, from my perspective, because I look at cards from that perspective, maybe this means I can go ahead and buy a BGS slab now, and I might consider BGS to be better than PSA. So now I can get it for much cheaper, and then it's a really cool card to have in my PC. That's all the, the stuff that I'm thinking about off the back of this, right? Is there a play here? And I've talked to quite a few people, actually, a few collectors that have started to buy, or not started to buy, but have bought BGS slabs more often because they seem to be selling for a lot less, than the PSA equivalents. It's the main reason to regrade with PSA and then make a pretty big profit. Now, that might become the new norm really quickly, which might push the BGS prices up, but it's, a very interesting, situation. And I'm seeing it with the average collectors that I'm talking to every single day on all my group chats and all that sort of stuff. Guys are targeting BGS slabs because they, value BGS's grading more than PSA's because they think they're more consistent, or they're looking at the card, they're not buying the holder, they think it's undergraded, they think BGS have done a good job, they can get it relatively cheap, so now they've got a cool card for their PC. So, it is what it is. I feel like I rambled a little bit there. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on that. Do you think BGS is making a comeback? Do you think, we're going to see the prices tank even further? No one's going to know for sure, right? But I'm very keen to get your thoughts on that because, I just find it odd. It wasn't that long ago there was a premium placed on these things. It's just shocking that, even historical cards that, 10 years ago, right? If Beckett graded something 10 years ago, people would say that card we're going to pay a premium for because Beckett's the best 10 years ago. But now that same card that was graded 10 years ago is worth less than a PSA equivalent from today. It's like, well, no, if you thought BGS was the best then, and maybe the studies and the cards suggested they were, shouldn't that card 10 years ago still be worth more than the card graded today by one of the rival companies? Like, that's the stuff you need to be thinking about, right? Buy the freaking card, not the holder, is the message at the end of the day, right? That's what you should be focusing on. But I just thought that was a very interesting video from Neo. So hope you liked it. The news video today, it ended up being a bit longer than I thought. I feel like I say that all the time because I'm a freaking idiot, but please share your thoughts below on any of the comments we discussed, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.